Listen up, and don't soften this with excuses. Right now, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, a simple truth is sitting between your ears. The life you live is the sum of the choices you make. That's not a guilt trip, that's power. If you want to change your tomorrow, I don't mean further, I mean now and in the next moments you decide to act, you must accept one brutal, liberating fact. Responsibility starts with you. There's a voice inside most people that loves to point fingers. It loves to invent reasons, to craft explanations that sound noble. The job was bad, the timing was wrong, the system is stacked. Those words comfort you for a second, but they steal your future. Every excuse is a retreat. Every excuse is a permission slip to remain small. If you keep waiting for perfect conditions, you will be waiting forever. The moment you stop blaming and start choosing, things begin to move. I'm not asking you to pretend life is easy. I'm not asking you to apologize for what happened to you. I'm asking you to take your power back. Responsibility does not mean you caused every hardship. It means you will choose what to do next. That pivot from "it happened to me" to "what will I do about it" is where transformation starts. When you start living from that question, your calendar, your habits, your relationships, your work, everything shifts. Here's a practical test. Open your mouth and complete the sentence, "I am responsible for." Don't stop at the obvious. You are responsible for your energy, the language you use, the friends you let influence you, the limits you accept, the tiny promises you break. Responsibility is granular. It lives in the small choices, showing up when it's hard, stopping when you know you're wrong, saying the thing that needs to be said, doing the work no one sees. Those small acts pile up into a life. Think about people you admire. Not the celebrities, but the ones who quietly built things. They didn't have perfect plans. They had one thing in common. They didn't wait for permission. They accepted the messy ownership of their outcomes. You can watch them and feel inspired, or you can do what they did. That difference between watching and doing is responsibility in action. Now, let me pull something sharp from the greats, because good ideas are useful tools. Earl Nightingale said in effect that you become what you think about. Don't let that phrase sit soft and pretty. If you ruminate on failure, you program failure. If you rehearse complaints, your life responds with more reasons to complain. Your mind is a radio. You choose the station. Napoleon Hill taught about definiteness of purpose. It's not a motivational poster line, it's a command. Be clear about what you want, then take the steps that make that want real. Dale Carnegie reminded people that the shortest route to influence is to care about others and be honest about it. Those ideas aren't ancient wisdom tucked away, they are practical levers. Pull them. Let's be concrete. Right now. Yes, now. Pick a pen or open a notes app. Write 3 areas of your life where you've been blaming outside forces. Be ruthless. Maybe it's your job. Maybe it's your finances. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's your relationships. For each area, write one small action you can take today that you do not need permission for. Not a perfect plan, not a long checklist, one action. That's responsibility. That's your immediate currency. This exercise flips the switch from passive to active. Responsibility also means owning your feelings without letting them run the show. When you get angry, you own the anger, not the cause, but your response. When you feel defeated, you own the next step. Emotions are data, not directives. You can accept the feeling and still choose the direction. People confuse responsibility with emotional suppression. It's the opposite. Full responsibility includes feeling fully, then deciding deliberately. There will be resistance. Your old brain likes safety. It prefers rehearsed narratives that keep you comfortable. Expect discomfort. Expect fear to show up and pretend to be a reason you can't proceed. Call it out. Name it. Oh, there's fear again. Thank you for showing up. I'll give you 5 minutes, then I'll do the thing anyway. That's an act of responsibility. You give the emotion its space, but you do not surrender your agenda to it. Let me give you a short story that's not mythical, because real stories stick. A woman I knew stopped showing up for meetings at work because she believed she wasn't being heard. She could have blamed the company or her boss. Instead, she took responsibility for one small thing. On Monday, she sent a short, clear agenda to her team with specific asks. She showed up early to meetings and asked one question that mattered. In 6 weeks, her participation was recognized. Did the company suddenly become perfect? No, but a small, deliberate choice rippled into influence. She stopped being reactive and started being the cause of her outcomes. Here's a truth most people ignore. Responsibility compounds. When you take a step today, you make the next step easier. Think of it like compound interest for character. One honest conversation makes the next honest conversation easier. One morning you get up and do the work, and the second morning the resistance is a little weaker. Build that bank account of tiny wins, and before you know it, you've got momentum. You also have to guard your language. The words you use shape your world. Replace "I can't" with "I choose not to" right now. Replace "they made me" with "I allowed this by doing X." Those subtle shifts are not nitpicky. They change how your brain looks for solutions. When you say "I choose," you return to the driver's seat. That's responsibility wearing sensible clothes. Let's talk about boundaries. Not as a buzzword, but as responsible infrastructure. You hold people to agreements. You refrain from being dragged into energy drains. Boundaries are an act of respect for your time and your mission. Saying no when you mean no is not cruelty, it's clarity. Responsibility to others includes being honest about what you can give. If you overcommit, you break promises to yourself and everyone else. Take responsibility for your limits, and others will start to treat your limits as real. There is a myth that responsibility is lonely and heavy. False. Responsibility is the path to freedom. When you take responsibility for your choices, you stop being at the mercy of circumstances. You gain agency. You stop reacting to the weather of life and start setting the bar for your days. You are no longer a passenger. You are the navigator. Now, I want you to do something that will feel like a small risk. Identify one relationship where you have been passive, not speaking up, not sharing truth, not setting expectations. Decide today to say one honest line to that person. It could be, "I need help with this," or "I felt unseen when X happened," or "I can't take on that project." Keep it brief, keep it true. That single sentence is an act of responsibility that cultivates trust. Avoid performance. Be real. We are not aiming for perfection. We are aiming for progress. Perfectionism is an excuse wrapped in the robe of competence. It says, "I'll start when conditions are perfect." Responsibility says, "I'll start where I am with what I have." Earl Nightingale's point that we become what we think about becomes a tool here. If you rehearse responsibility, you grow into it. If you rehearse excuses, you get better at excuses. If you want a simple framework to use daily, try this. Notice the situation without blame. Name what you are feeling and what you think caused it. Choose one possible response that is within your control. Act on it. Repeat. That sequence trains a muscle. Do it enough and your reflex becomes responsible action. A final sharp note for this part is, the world rewards people who are reliable, not perfect. Leaders get promoted because they solve problems and keep their word. People follow those who accept responsibility. So if you want influence, start by owning what's in front of you. Stop polishing excuses. Start making decisions. This is your invitation and your challenge. Be honest with the inventory of your life. Choose one small action in one area you identified earlier and do it within the hour. No permission needed, no dramatic epiphany required. Just one measured, deliberate choice to be the cause, not the effect. Take it and keep going.
Part 2. You want change? Then understand this. Thought isn't decoration, it's the blueprint. What you think determines the doors you knock on, the questions you ask, the risks you accept. Thought hooks into decision. Decision births action. Action writes your results. This chain is merciless and beautiful. If you master the upper links, thought and decision, the rest becomes a matter of consistent labor. That's where responsibility sits, upstream, steering the whole river. Start by watching your thoughts like a curious scientist. For 2 days, become a detective of your inner monologue. Notice the patterns, scarcity talk, limiting beliefs, the rehearsal of past failures. Don't judge yourself, observe. Then, pick one recurring thought that costs you energy. For many people, it's "I'm not ready" or "I don't have enough." That thought is not a fact. It's an operating instruction you can change. When you name it, you take power away from it. Now, convert thought into a decision, a short, unambiguous command to yourself. Decision is different from wish. A wish is soft and negotiable. A decision is non-negotiable. Don't say, "I'll try to be more disciplined." Decide, "I will work on Project X for 60 uninterrupted minutes every day between 7 and 8 in the morning." Notice the clarity. Napoleon Hill called this definiteness of purpose. It's not mystical, it's the difference between a foggy desire and a plotted course. Here's the part people skip. Writing your decision down makes it real. Science of habit shows that externalizing intention, writing, speaking, scheduling, moves the brain from abstraction into execution. Put your decision on a sticky note, a calendar slot, or an alarm label. Make it visible. Responsibility loves light. It weakens in vagueness. Next, understand your subconscious as an ally, not an enemy. Your subconscious is a vast storage system running programs you fed it over years. If you grew up hearing, "We can't afford that," you probably carry a financial script. If you were told to be quiet, you may default to silence. These scripts run whether you like them or not. Responsibility here means becoming the programmer. You can feed the subconscious new input, repetition of chosen thoughts, deliberate actions, and small wins. Earl Nightingale said, "We become what we think about." Use that deliberately. Rehearse what you want, speak it, act like it in the small things. Practice tiny rewiring daily. Pick one belief you want to change. For example, "I'm not a person who finishes what they start." Break it down into micro commitments. Finish the next article you begin. Complete a 10-minute workout you start. Send that overdue message. Each completed small thing writes a counterexample into your subconscious. Over time, those counterexamples become new default scripts. That's responsibility, choosing what story your brain runs. Habits are the engine of your life. If you want different results, retool the engine. But here's where responsibility is not glamorous. It's repetition. Discipline is simply doing what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it. Action without feeling is the mark of growth. The first times are the hardest because the brain resists novelty. Keep going. The second, third, 10th repetition is easier. Build the sequence and guard it fiercely. You must also cultivate attention. Attention is the currency of results. Where you aim your focus, effort follows. Multitasking is a lie dressed up as productivity. Real power comes from sustained focus on the few things that matter. Ask yourself daily, where will I place my attention that will change the next 90 days of my life? Choose the top one, commit a block of time, and protect that block as if it were an appointment with destiny. Responsibility means defending your attention as if your future depended on it, because it does. Decision leads to action, but action without review is wasted. Build a feedback loop. At the end of each week, review what you did and how it moved outcomes. Be honest, not self-flagellating, honest. Which choices pushed you forward? Which ones were neutral or harmful? Adjust. This small practice trains a muscle, accountability to reality, which is the soil where responsibility grows. People who succeed are not immune to mistakes, they just correct faster. Let's talk about environment, because responsibility includes the selection of your company and setting. If you want growth, spend time with people who model it, not because you're copying their sparkle, but because habits spread. If your friends are content with excuses, your progress will be a battle against the tide. Choose your environment like a strategist. People, books, routines that elevate your standard. That doesn't mean betrayal of old friends. It means creating balance and investing in spaces that stretch you. Now, a practical drill. Each morning for the next week, write one sentence that crystallizes your decision for the day. Keep it under 12 words. Put it where you will see it. At midday, check in. Did you honor that decision? If not, note why. At evening, celebrate the win, however small. This ritual trains the mind to translate thought into immediate action and to hold you accountable. Responsibility thrives on small, repeatable systems. You will meet resistance from other people, sometimes subtle, sometimes blatant. When you shift your standards, others may react in ways that test you. Some will try to drag you back to old narratives because your change highlights their inertia. That's not your problem to fix, it's your call to respond wisely. If someone's reaction drags you, protect your decision. Be compassionate, but firm. Responsibility means managing not just your actions, but the relational dynamics around you. There is also the temptation to overdo. Responsibility is not brutal self-denial. It's about measured power. You don't have to become a machine. You must, however, choose what you value and allocate your finite energy accordingly. That looks like saying no more often. It looks like designing a rhythm for work and rest. People confuse responsibility with constant grind. The mature form of responsibility includes strategic renewal, sleep, recovery, learning. If you burn out, your ability to influence evaporates. Own that too. A few sentences from the wise. Dale Carnegie taught that influence grows from honest interest in others. Use that in your practice of responsibility. When you accept responsibility in relationships, show up with curiosity and kindness. Don't confuse ownership with control. You can own your actions and still respect another's autonomy. That balance makes you persuasive and dependable. Finally, decide now how you will measure your progress for the next 60 days. Pick one metric, not vague like be better, but specific. Number of pages written, calls made, workouts completed, savings accumulated. Track it. Let the metric be brutal and informative. At the 60-day mark, read the data and ask, what did responsibility produce? If it wasn't enough, adjust the decision and the actions, then repeat. This is the cycle of growth. Decide, act, measure, refine. Responsibility is not an abstract moral badge to pin on your chest. It's an operational system. It means choosing the thought, making the decision, building the tiny habit, protecting your attention, and measuring the result. When you practice this, the noise of excuses fades. Your life becomes an answer to the questions you choose to ask of yourself. So take one thing from this part and make it immediate. Write down one limiting thought you hold, convert it into a precise decision, and commit to the smallest next action that proves the decision real. Do that now, pen to paper, finger to screen. That act, will be a declaration. You are the author, not the audience, of your life.
Part 3. Fear is the most polite thief you'll ever meet. It wears logic like camouflage and whispers convenient reasons why you should wait, why you should shrink, why you should accept less. But here's the blunt truth. Fear doesn't want to protect you as much as it wants to keep your world predictable. Responsibility takes the flashlight to that hiding place. It says, I see you, fear. Thank you. I'm doing it anyway. First, understand what fear actually is. It's not prophecy. It's a prediction made from a past pattern, a rehearsal of worst-case scenarios your mind learned to play on loop. When you feel fear before making a phone call, giving feedback, launching that project, or asking for more, your brain is running old footage. Responsibility says, you are the editor. You can stop the tape and cut the worst parts out. You need a new language for fear. Stop telling yourself, I'm afraid. That's passive, like the thing owns you. Say instead, fear is present. I am moving forward. That change is small in words, huge in consequence. It separates the event from your identity. Fear becomes a visitor, not the landlord. Now the practical part. You can't intellectually outfox fear forever. You must outact it. Action is the solvent that dissolves fear. Pick one thing that scares you in the arena of your life. Maybe it's a conversation you've been avoiding, a pitch you haven't made, or telling the truth about a missed deadline. Break it into the smallest possible step. Not the whole speech, not the full proposal, one line, one opening sentence, one 5-minute window. Then do that 5-minute thing. That's it. Small, fierce, direct. Responsibility is built out of these contemptibly small acts that most people refuse to do. Here's a simple move you can use right now. Set a timer for 5 minutes and do the smallest actionable piece of the fear task. If it's a call, dial the number and say, Hi, this is X. I have one quick question. If it's a note, write the first sentence and stop. If it's a walk to the gym you've been delaying, put on your shoes and walk out the door. You'll either complete the action or you'll create momentum to complete the next micro step. Either way, fear loses. People ask me, what if I fail? Good question. Failure is not the opposite of responsibility. It's one of its consequences and teachers. When you take responsibility, you accept that not all experiments will work. You don't make failure a verdict, you make it data. This is what separates those who learn and adapt from those who repeat the same complaint. If you fail, map the reasons, adjust, try a new micro-step. Repeat. That's how people turn fear into insight. Let me tell you about someone who used fear as a compass rather than a jailer. A man I know had a stable job but hated the direction of his career. He told himself the safe story. I'll wait until I have more experience. But responsibility caught him. He realized waiting was a choice too. His fear was that leaving would mean humiliation if it failed. He decided to test that fear. One informational interview a week with people in the field he wanted to work in. Those interviews felt risky, but they were small and public enough to be manageable. After a few months, one interview led to a short freelance gig. The small wins rewired his identity from someone stuck to someone who builds options. Months later, he left the job with clients in hand. Not because he was fearless, he wasn't, but because he practiced moving despite fear until fear adjusted to his courage. Fear often disguises itself as perfectionism or over-planning. Just one more draft, you tell yourself. But perfectionism is a cousin of avoidance. Responsibility counters by setting deadlines you respect. Decide on a finish line for a version, not a flawless product. Ship it, then refine. This rhythm trains you to prioritize impact over paralysis. Another strategic tool: redefine your relationship with uncertainty. Most people treat uncertainty like an enemy, but uncertainty is simply information not yet discovered. When you accept responsibility, you treat uncertainty as a field to explore. Curiosity replaces dread. Ask questions like, what is the worst plausible outcome? How likely is it? What resources do I have to handle it? Often the worst case is survivable. Now you have a plan to mitigate it. That planning is an act of responsibility that reduces fear's power. You also need to learn to say the hard sentences. There's a brutal elegance to short, true statements. I can't take this on. That hurt me. I need help. These sentences are not weakness, they are precise acts of ownership. They clear the air and set boundaries. People respect clarity. They resent passive aggression and secret resentment. Responsibility means telling the truth, and truth tends to shorten drama and lengthen respect. Let's talk about social fear, the anxiety about how others will see you. Most people imagine the worst reactions and treat those imagined audiences as judges. But the audience in your head is not representative. Most of the time, people are mildly curious, somewhat distracted, and largely empathetic. When you accept responsibility for your actions, you take the risk of being seen as flawed but committed. That vulnerability attracts the kind of people who want to build with you, not just watch you perform. Courage is not absence of fear. Courage is habitual action despite fear. Build courage like you build a muscle. Start small, increase load, then rest and repeat. A daily practice works best. Choose one small risk each day and take it. It could be a difficult email, a short workout, or an honest conversation. Over weeks, these accumulate. The neural pathway for courage strengthens. The path for avoidance erodes. Responsibility is the training plan. Now a word about regret, the long-term poison. People fear consequences now, but the deeper fear should be the quiet burn of regret in later life. When you choose safety now and accumulate inaction, you make a deposit in the regret account. Responsibility asks you to calculate not only the immediate fear, but the future cost of not acting. That calculation often makes the short-term fear seem trivial. Let's add a ritual that helps. Before any important choice, ask 3 rapid questions. What is the kindest truth? What is the smallest brave step? What could I learn from this if it goes poorly? Answer quickly, then act. These questions orient you toward constructive behavior instead of paralyzing rumination. They create a pattern: kindness plus smallness plus learning equals responsible courage. You will also face institutional fears, rules, hierarchies, systems that seem immovable. Responsibility doesn't mean you must confront every institution head-on. It means you look for leverage points within systems. Who can you ask for guidance? What small experiment can reveal a pathway? Often the system is less rigid than you think. People within it respond to clarity and consistent action more than to dramatic rebellion. Don't mistake dramatic gestures for responsibility. Grandstanding feels powerful, but often lacks follow-through. Responsibility is steady. It's the person who shows up again after the applause fades. That's how reputations are built, by repeated responsible actions that others can predict and rely on. Want influence? Be the one who solves problems others avoid. Finally, make a promise to yourself. When fear appears, you will name it, take one micro step, and record what happened. Keep a fear log for a week. Note the trigger, the micro step, and the result. You'll be surprised how many fears evaporate after exposure. Responsibility transforms fear into a data point, not a dictator. So here's your immediate assignment from this part. Pick the task you've been avoiding that scares you the most. Break it into the tiniest possible action. Do that action within the next hour. If you can't do the full thing, do the micro step. Afterward, write one sentence about what happened. That short cycle, name, act, record, is a powerful loop. Practice it, and you will rewrite the story fear tells you.
Part 4. You are not a passenger. You are the CEO of the one business that absolutely cannot be outsourced, your life. Treat it like a company that must produce results, not excuses. This mindset flips flattering laziness into a sober, energizing responsibility. It asks you to plan like an owner, to protect scarce resources, your attention, your energy, your time, and to invest them where they compound. If you want to make more with less, you must get ruthless about what you refuse to waste. Start with a mission statement. Don't overthink it. One crisp sentence that answers, what do you want to stand for in the next 5 years? This isn't the glossy advertising copy, it's your GPS. When choices appear, you consult that sentence. If a task doesn't align, you say no. This is not moralizing, it's triage. The act of writing a mission is an act of responsibility because it moves you from vague wishing to a measurable North Star. Next, decide your 90-day priorities. Most people confuse busyness with progress. You will not be judged by how many items you crossed off a list. You will be judged by whether those items moved the needle. Pick 3 outcomes you want in the next 90 days. Make them measurable. Improve fitness is vague. Complete 36 workouts in 90 days is a target. Grow business is foggy. Close 3 new clients worth X is a metric. Responsibility thrives on specificity. Once you have your 90-day outcomes, break them into weekly plays. Each week should have one central focus that directly feeds those outcomes. Protect a block of deep time, at least 90 minutes, 3 times a week for work that actually produces value. This is not email. This is not admin. This is forward-moving work that only you can do. Treat that block like an immovable board meeting. If someone asks to take it, say, I can't. That time is taken. Saying no is simply practicing responsibility to the future you promised. Design rituals that remove friction. People overestimate motivation and underestimate structure. The small design choices matter. Where you place your phone at night, how you start your morning, the order you do work. Imagine the friction of starting a workout if your shoes are buried in a closet. Now imagine the reduced friction if your shoes are by the door. Responsibility is environmental engineering. Rearrange your world so the responsible action is the easier action. You must guard your attention aggressively. Notice how the world wants tiny pieces of you all day. Notifications, meetings without purpose, social noise. If you don't design boundaries, your attention becomes a communal resource people nibble away. Use a calendar like a bank ledger. Deposit deep work, withdraw shallow tasks intentionally. Batch communication into 2 windows per day. Turn off notifications for non-essential apps. Attention is finite. Protect it as if someone paid you to keep it. Use the 80-20 rule as your decision filter. Identify the 20% of activities that produce 80% of your results. Then do more of them and ruthlessly cut the rest. This is not laziness, it's leverage. Responsibility means choosing where to apply force so your outcomes accelerate. If you find that answering random inbound requests consumes your week, reorganize the process. Set office hours, delegate, automate. The responsible leader makes systems, not just effort. Discipline is not punishment, it's a design for freedom. The more you automate good behavior, the less you will rely on willpower. Create anchored habits, a specific wake time, a short morning ritual that primes your mind. Read 1 page, write 1 sentence, move for 10 minutes. A nightly review where you list wins and lessons.
These anchors are tiny contracts with yourself. Keep them like you keep payroll, consistently and without bargaining. When planning, favor schedules over to-do lists. A to-do list is a dream. A scheduled calendar is a promise. Put your most important actions on the calendar and treat them as meetings with destiny. Block 2-hour windows for creative work and label them clearly. If something is important enough to be done, it deserves a dedicated time slot. That simple move transforms vague intentions into executed actions. Delegate and automate where possible. Responsibility isn't martyrdom, it's stewardship. If a task someone else can do is taking your time away from leverage work, create a process and hand it off. Teach the person, set up checkpoints, and free your capacity. This isn't shirking, it's optimizing impact. You will be judged by the outcomes you produce, not by how many trivial tasks you personally ticked off. Keep a weekly review habit. Every week, spend 20 minutes asking what moved the needle, what wasted time, what one adjustment next week will yield a better result. Record these notes. Over time, you'll build a repository of experiments and their outcomes. That's data, real accountability. Leaders who progress are not mystical, they are methodical. They collect evidence and course correct faster than they make excuses. Leverage imagination as a practical tool. Visualization isn't fluff when paired with action. Imagine the result you want in vivid detail, the conversation, the room, the numbers. Then, reverse engineer the first 5 steps that would logically lead there. Take those steps. Napoleon Hill's insistence on definiteness is not spiritual mumbo-jumbo. It's concrete planning paired with persistent effort. Use your imagination to map the route, then walk it. Focus on value, not validation. Too many people perform for the applause of others and confuse likes with progress. Value is created when you solve a problem or produce something useful. Prioritize producing over performing. The world is always fuller of spectators than doers. Responsibility asks you to be the latter. Build, ship, and accept feedback. Iteration beats perfection as a growth engine. Learn to pivot without panic. Plans will change, markets shift, people leave. Responsibility is not the rigidity of a bent ruler. It's the flexibility of a well-designed spine. When facts change, adapt your actions quickly. But don't confuse reactionary behavior with strategic pivoting. The latter is deliberate and measured. If a pathway fails, diagnose why, adjust the hypothesis, and run a new experiment. Responsible people react to reality, not to rumor. Protect your energy like currency. Energy management matters as much as time management. Sleep, movement, nutrition, social connection. These are not optional luxuries. They are the infrastructure that enable you to keep your promises. If your energy tanks, your ability to be responsible evaporates. Schedule recovery as intentionally as work. This is not self-indulgence, it's long-term productivity engineering. Practice being decisive. Indecision is a productivity tax. Set clear decision rules. If a decision's consequence is reversible and not mission critical, decide quickly and test. Use deadlines to force clarity. Ask yourself, what is the least bad choice that moves me forward? Then choose and observe. Decision breeds momentum. Momentum breeds confidence. Finally, measure what matters. Pick 2 KPIs that reflect the core of your 90-day goals. Track them weekly. Numbers remove drama. They turn argument into fact. If your weekly metrics trend up, celebrate and scale. If they trend down, analyze and adjust. Responsibility is not vague aspiration, it's measurable accountability. Here's a straightforward template to use today. Write 1-line mission, list 3 90-day outcomes with metrics, schedule 3 weekly deep work blocks, set 2 KPIs to track, and create 1 recovery ritual for the week. That is not heroic, it is pragmatic responsibility. Do it, and your days will transform from reactive browsing into intentional building. Remember, working harder on the wrong things guarantees little return. Working smarter, with relentless ownership of your choices and structure compounds into real impact. The most successful people I know are not the ones who work longest. They're the ones who design their work to produce what matters most and then keep the system running. That is responsibility. Now take one action. Open your calendar and block 3 deep work sessions for this week. Label them with the project name and treat them as immovable. That small operational step begins the chain that turns desire into results. Part 5. If you want to keep what you build, responsibility has to become habit, not a heroic act. Short bursts of intensity feel great and are useful, but lasting change is boring and steady. The person who wins a lifetime is the one who treats responsibility like a lifestyle, something you do by default, the way you brush your teeth or pay your bills. That's where real freedom lives, in the compound effect of tiny daily commitments kept over years. Start by thinking in terms of identity, not just behavior. Most people chase outcomes and then wonder why results don't stick. Outcomes are the byproduct of identity. When you accept responsibility at the identity level, I am the kind of person who finishes what they start. I am the kind of person who tells the truth. I am the kind of person who protects their time. Your actions follow like weather. Earl Nightingale said it plainly. You become what you think about. Make your identity a working hypothesis and test it with small behaviors every day. Each micro action is a vote for the person you intend to be. Now, widen your lens. Short-term wins are fuel, but you must also design for decades. Spend time crafting a 5-year mission that matters. Not a generic career plan, an operating creed. What problems you want to solve, what values you refuse to trade, the reputation you want to hold when people speak about you. Write it down. Return to it monthly. Use it as a filter for choices that otherwise feel urgent but are irrelevant. Responsibility at scale is alignment. Your daily actions should route toward that long arc. Relationships are where responsibility proves its depth. You cannot build a life of meaning alone. Being responsible in relation means being reliable, telling the truth, and showing up when it's hard. It also means receiving feedback without defensiveness and apologizing when you're wrong. These are practical skills, not moral lectures. Dale Carnegie taught that influence rests on genuine interest in others. Apply that. Ask the hard questions. Listen longer than you speak. Keep your promises. Over time, this practice creates a network that reflects and amplifies your standards. Guard your inner circle like a financial advisor guards capital. People you spend the most time with will define your norms. If you want growth, surround yourself with people who solve problems, not people who specialize in rationalizing inaction. That doesn't mean becoming exclusive. It means investing more time where standards are raised. Create a weekly check-in with one person who will ask you the uncomfortable questions. Did you do what you said? Where did you shrink? What's the next bold step? Accountability transforms intention into momentum. Sustainability matters. Responsibility without rest is brittle. Design rhythms of work and recovery that match the demands you place on yourself. Sleep is non-negotiable. Deep work needs replenishment. Celebrate wins, but also schedule down days where your mind can wander and your body can reset. The people who last in any field are those who treat rest as strategic, not indulgent. If you burn out, your capacity to be responsible collapses. Protect your energy like an investment portfolio. Learn to steward your reputation. Reputation is the long-term return on consistent responsibility. It's earned through reliability more than charisma. Show up when others don't. Do the small things most skip. Return messages within a reasonable time. Be the person who can be counted on to finish the job. Influence accumulates like interest. Slow at first, then obvious. That accumulation makes later opportunities possible. It gives you leverage when you want to coach, lead, start, or pivot. Create systems for learning. Responsibility includes the commitment to improve. Read widely. Talk to people who have done what you want to do. Run micro experiments and record the outcomes. A curious, measured learner converts setbacks into inputs rather than identity blows. Keep a short journal of experiments, hypothesis, action, result. Over years, that journal becomes a map of what worked for you personally, not a borrowed checklist, but a crafted playbook. Be ruthless about what you will tolerate. If you allow low standards in one area, they spread. Maybe you tolerate lateness, unclear communication, or low effort from people you lead. That tolerance erodes the culture of responsibility around you. Set clear agreements and enforce them gently but firmly. Accountability is not punishment, it's the simplest kindness. It protects everyone's time and energy. Say what you expect and measure it. When agreements are broken, respond with questions and consequence, not with drama. Cultivate gratitude, even as you own everything. Responsibility doesn't mean you deny luck, mercy, or support. It means you notice them and repay them with work. Gratitude keeps arrogance at bay and humility in play. When you recognize that others contributed to your opportunities, you become a better steward of those opportunities. Responsibility and gratitude together make you both powerful and humane. Think about legacy, what you will leave in the lives of others. Responsibility scales through teaching. If you're a leader, your responsibility is not only to produce, but to reproduce capacity in others. Mentor someone, even briefly. Teach a small skill. Pass on a method that saved you time or spared you a mistake. This multiplication is the most effective way to make responsibility durable beyond your personal reach. When systems fail, and they will, choose the posture of a builder, not a victim. Systems break because humans are imperfect. When you see fault, ask, what can I fix? What leverage point exists? Work on the smallest input that will shift the output. Often the quickest improvement is in clarity of responsibility. Who does what, by when, with what measure of success? Make that explicit and watch the system respond. Create a ritual for recommitment. Once every quarter, run a personal audit. What promises did you keep? What promises did you break? And why? Recalibrate your mission and your 90-day outcomes. A ritual like this prevents slow drift, the silent enemy of responsibility. People often fail not because they started poorly, but because they never checked in to correct the drift. Now, a practical test to anchor this part. Create a responsibility map for one important domain: family, career, health, or money. Draw a circle and list the top 3 responsibilities you hold there. For each, write the one action you will commit to daily that proves you are responsible in that domain. Keep the actions tiny and non-negotiable. Track them for 60 days. If you miss, analyze without shame and start again. The goal is not perfection, but the practice of returning to your commitments. Remember, responsibility isn't a burden, it's an instrument. It gives you leverage over outcomes, dignity in choices, and ownership of the story you live. When you take responsibility, you turn chaos into possibilities because you become the agent who can respond. That is power. That is freedom. So, here is the last uncompromising challenge. Pick one domain of your life that matters most over the next 5 years. Write your 5 year mission for that domain in one sentence. Beneath it, list 3 daily micro actions that prove your commitment to it. Start them tonight. Do not negotiate. If one action is too big, shrink it further until it feels absurdly manageable. Then do it. Repeat. Over months, those micro actions compound into a life that matches your ambitions. You are the architect. You are the CEO. Responsibility is your toolkit and your inheritance. Take it up and build something that lasts. If this landed with you, subscribe and hit like.